I'm here because I pray that no one ever has to experience what I and many other Texas residents have endured. Currently, the insurance companies are failing to pay adequately the claims and forcing clients who paid into their insurance company to take them to court before they will pay adequately and promptly. I have insurance that I paid for, part of which is required to drive. I added to my policy uninsured and underinsured coverage. I was involved in an accident 3 years ago. The other insurance company admitted damage and liability. However, their policy limit was not enough to cover my medical expenses and damages. So I filed a claim on my underinsured policy. State Farm refused to pay the full amount of my $30,000 policy, underinsured policy. Prior to the mediation, they offered to pay around $4,000. By the time of trial, the total amount offered was $10,000. I would have expected to get that kind of runaround from the other insurance company. I never would have thought that I would have got that from my own insurance company that I felt that I had built a relationship with and trust and confidence in them. The pain and suffering and humiliation that they've put me through with the fear of retaliation, were they going to cancel my policy? The fear of having to file a lawsuit, I'd never had to file a lawsuit against them, and going to court, all the while trying to recuperate from this painful accident. But this is what I was forced to do. The trial took 3 days. I was in so much pain. Just having to sit there in those hard chairs, it made me sick. I couldn't take my medicine because I was afraid that I couldn't think clearly to answer their questions. I was humiliated. I had to go over my intimate relationships with my husband and how the accident affected that aspect of my life, and it was humiliating. I was the victim, but I felt like I was the wrongdoer. The State Farm knew that whenever I filed this policy, they knew that they weren't going to have to pay me anything. They knew that they wouldn't have to pay me anything unless that jury awarded me $80,000. My policy was $30,000. At one point, the attorney representing State Farm stated to the jury that, and he said this in court to everyone, that the only reason they had not paid was because they didn't know how much they should pay. They had no idea how much they should pay. And they even suggested.
So the professional insurance company was putting it in the hands of lay people on a jury to tell you how much,
yes,
to determine how much should be paid.
Yes, because they said that State Farm, and I guess all of the people that work for them, that they didn't know. They didn't know how much they should pay. They even suggested that I should receive an award for my medical bills and lost wages plus a little extra. So State Farm suggested that the jury award me $50,000, which was the amount of the policy offset. I was shocked because they knew that if the jury did not come back with an $80,000, then I would not get the policy limit. They knew that if the jury came back with $50,000, they wouldn't have to pay anything. So I was shocked. It was a deliberate, deceptive, and very calculated maneuver to try to persuade the jury of their false generosity. We know that she's hurt. You know, we know that we need to pay. We're thinking $50,000. The jury's thinking they're being very generous, not knowing that they weren't going to have to pay anything. This was a deception in the courtroom and nothing more than an opportunity to walk away free and clear of all financial responsibility and would have left me with nothing. No such offer of $50,000 was ever made or even suggested by State Farm prior to that day in court. The jury wasn't allowed to know the harsh reality that if they had awarded me the suggested $50,000, State Farm would not have to pay one single penny. They weren't allowed to know that they would have to award me a minimum of $80,000 in order for me to collect my $30,000 policy. They also didn't know that if they awarded me anything less than $50,000, I would not receive anything at all. Further, the jury was not allowed to know that no matter what the amount awarded over $80,000, State Farm would only have to pay the value of the policy, which was $30,000. Not to mention, no mention of this was allowed to be shared with the jury, and the insurance companies are using this as a loophole every day for their own financial gain and destroying people's lives in the process. It was a win-win for State Farm either way. If they can drag it out as long as possible, people will become desperate for financial relief and settle for less than their policy limit. If they're forced to go to court like I had to do, it presents an opportunity to avoid having to pay anything at all. I was very fortunate. The jury awarded me $150,550. But let me be perfectly clear. Once more on that matter, State Farm won't have to pay that amount because they only have to pay the $30,000 policy limit. And the jury is none the wiser. What makes matters worse, State Farm agreed that liability for the wreck was clear. They even, like I said, offered to pay all of my medical bills and lost wages since they were under the $50,000. They also agreed that my policy was in force and in effect at the time of the wreck. They didn't want to have to pay for any of my pain, suffering, impairment, mental anguish under the policy that covered such. The trial was an easy, no-risk answer to their problem. I can't begin to express the impact this has had on my life, but I will say this much. I've been very blessed and fortunate to have received the tremendous support from family, friends, and my previous employers at CBS television stations where I worked for 16 years, who cared enough that they afforded me the time off from work to heal and try to recuperate. They were equally shocked when they became aware of how the insurance companies were operating and treating people like myself. We've learned that this has been happening for a very long time all over the state of Texas to people who don't have the support and are being forced to settle or go to court because these multi-billion-dollar companies have the resources to drag it out until the client can no longer wait, then out of sheer desperation because they have medical and cost of living expenses are forced to either settle or initiate a lawsuit. These multi-billion-dollar insurance companies are more concerned about their bottom line than the lives and livelihood of their clients.
Ms. Mentzer, I really appreciate what you're saying, but could you please wrap it up? We'd like to take some action on this bill.
Okay,
Thank
yes. Okay, my final thoughts. Thank you. My final thoughts on that is I wanted to say that this has to stop. People's lives are being impacted and destroyed for financial gain and a bottom line. I and so many others are very proud of our great state of Texas. People all over the world regard us as friendly and proud, to be honest, kind and helpful. We still neighbor and look out for each other, a quality that's sadly disappearing. You have the opportunity to make a huge impact on the lives of your constituents at a time when politicians aren't trusted to do what's in the best interest of the people they represent. We, the people of Texas, still believe in our elected officials because we have seen throughout history your courage and integrity and dedication to the offices that you hold.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Thank you so much for coming all this way.